Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward. Welcome, my friends, to Paranormal Heart Podcast, Paranormal Talk with Heart and Soul. Tonight's segment is pre-recorded, streaming on United Public Radio Network 107.7 New Orleans, 105.3 the Gulf Coast, YouTube, and any place you find your favorite podcast. If you're looking for another great podcast, join my friends Justin Cancelleri and Eric Skriback on Paratruth Reborn. Explore the mysteries beyond the veil every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on UPRN, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. So tonight, my haunted hearts, my guest is Ryan Kralik. Oh my God, I forgot to ask you if that's how it's pronounced. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. Author of It From Us, an information first framework and the purpose of consciousness. In this work, Ryan explores consciousness not as a byproduct of the brain, but as a fundamental aspect of reality, examining how information, awareness, and human experience may shape the universe itself. So please welcome Ryan. I'm sorry, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You sure did.
Oh, good. Thank you. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. I mean, at least that's how they pronounce it since they brought it here.
Okay.
Over there, I'm sure they pronounced it a lot more Eastern European, but
probably, yeah. But that's how you pronounce it. Okay, good. Okay. I usually ask before I hit record, but I forgot this time, so I'm glad I got it right. Whew. Okay. So Ryan, before we jump into the questions, could you give us a little bit of background on you? Tell us what you do, what made you, we'll get to that part later, but just give us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm in marketing. That's my day job. I own a marketing company. I've been in marketing for about 26 years. So I guess that makes me kind of an old person now. If you've been doing anything that long, you're pretty much old. But that's new to me. I was at a meeting yesterday and I looked around and I'm like, holy crap, I'm the old person here.
Oh, no.
That's new. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I'm in marketing and communications, kind of PR type stuff. And so my professional experience is about crafting stories and explaining things, generally to a very lay audience. So whether that's on behalf of for instance, a manufacturer of something, and they want to communicate to the marketplace what they do. They use somebody like me to make sure that is put together in a way that people can understand, right? When you talk to somebody in an industry about their industry, it's all jargon. Nobody knows what any of it means. And so that I guess is part of my expertise anyway. But then alongside of that, ever since I was very young, I've studied a number of topics, and they were just interesting to me. Things like civilization, and particularly ancient civilizations, and religion. I've studied religion and sociology of religion, and almost like an anthropologist might study it. And I've been doing that since I was a kid.
Wow.
But then other things like UAP and remote viewing, and to a much lesser extent biology, but then also physics and those aspects of physics that the consensus really seems to be that there isn't much of a consensus, quantum mechanics and things like that. So, these and a few other weird topics I studied, most of my life. And a few years ago, some weird things started to happen. And I kind of ended up developing a framework that united all these weird things. And that's how I got here. So,
can you tell us some of the weird things that started to happen?
Yeah. Let's rewind a ways and kind of give you a snapshot of how this started. I was raised Catholic. Roman Catholic, and I went to Catholic school, and it's not like it was like when my parents went to Catholic school, you know, with nuns beating everybody and stuff, but it's a different kind of education than, you know, what the vast majority of folks, you know, in at least in my country, in the United States, go through. And so going from Catholic school for, you know, the first whatever it was, 6 years, 7 years, and then after that I went to public school. There was this was kind of an eye-opening time, because in Catholic school, yeah, reading, okay, yep, check. Writing, okay, check. Got to learn cursive, check. Addition, subtraction, all that. We're going to teach you all that. Science, some. We're going to teach you some science. Some science we're not going to get into. So then I go to public school, and it's like the first thing I notice is, holy cow, they're taking science pretty seriously here.
Must have been like a culture shock.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, I don't know to what extent they really get into like world history and culture in elementary school anyway. But, you know, then I go to what we called at the time middle school. I think they still do, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And they're really getting in depth on other cultures, which was not something, at least at the Catholic grade school that I went to, that we ever really got into. It was not how our worldview fits into the broader landscape. It was how our worldview is the right one, right? And so, you know, they start teaching evolution. I was like, oh, no. But, you know, within about 15 minutes of learning evolution you know, them teaching me evolution in public school, I was like, well, this makes a heck of a lot more sense than the other stuff I learned. And so around this time, though, I also found out there was no Santa Claus. I'm the oldest of 3. My youngest sibling is 5 or 6 years younger than me. And, you know, we're Catholic. So I think maybe most kids, I don't know what the average is, maybe 8, they find out that there's no Santa Claus. Well, there I am, like 11 or 12.
Oh, wow.
And just finding it out. And the reason I found it out is for a couple of years before that, I'd been like, I don't know if I believe in this. I'd write a letter to Santa Claus telling him I don't believe. And then 2 weeks later, I'd get scared and write him a letter that I do.
Oh, yeah.
It was,
just in case.
Right. And then the way that it finally happened is I was getting, because this was right around the same time I'm learning these things in public school that are different than what I learned in Catholic school. I'm really kind of adopting this new philosophy that, you know, I think I've been being misled on some things, and Santa Claus is one of them. And so I think I was just making a comment about, you know, there's no Santa Claus anyway. And my dad kind of cornered me and he said, shut up. You're now ruining this for your brother and sister. I'm like, damn it, it's true. I knew it. And so that's really where a lot of this started. That's where I started, you know, studying these topics that I don't want to say that they were previously forbidden. They just weren't something that were encouraged or acknowledged.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the first jolt that happens in my life that gets me interested in these things. So then, you know, always studied a lot of these topics, sometimes more than others, but about in 2020, I sold a company that I had built. And, you know, it was during COVID, and while COVID was happening here anyway, you know, everybody's closed. You can't do this, you can't do that. So it reminded me so much, you know, work-wise, of the financial crisis in 2008. You know, just the uncertainty, and nobody knew it was going to happen. Nobody wanted to spend any money.
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember like 2008 had kind of like a pretty serious impact on me. I watched people that I work for spend 3 years treading water and then going belly up. Right? And, you know, bankruptcies all over the place, real estate market's a mess. And so I looked at the situation and said, I don't know what's next, but I don't want it to be that. For me, I don't want to spend 3 years treading water just to drown. And so, you know, some people had come along and offered to buy the company, so I sold it to him. But what I didn't have was any plan really for
Oh,
what I was going to do next.
yeah.
So you could say that I had a period of time where I had a crisis of purpose, and that that and some other things led to me going through some pretty difficult times and depression and medications, and it was kind of a nightmare. And but during that time, with nothing else to do anyway, but take the pills that they gave me and read. That's what I did. Is I was, reading several books a week on these kind of fringe topics. Probably a lot of the stuff that you're talking about on your show pretty frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was reading a book by Lynn Buchanan called The Seventh Sense. It's about the remote viewing program that the Army had, and
Mm-hmm.
and Lynn was one of the people in the program. And I had read a couple of other books like this. I actually had read a book when I was a kid that was they didn't call it remote viewing, but that's what it was. It was a book about remote viewing, but it was like a novel for kids. And
Oh,
kind of
really?
always, oh yeah, it always stayed with me. I can't remember the name of it. I do have a copy of it upstairs, but I mention it in the book, my
Mhm.
new book, It From Us. So, but I get about halfway through this book by Lynn, and I put it down because I'm like, I'm already going crazy. Do I really need this stuff? Right?
Mhm.
It's probably only going to make it worse. Unless it's true, then it's worth an exploration. And so I just kind of made a split second decision, and I got up and went and found something out of a junk drawer and put it in my pocket. I went and found my wife, who was unaware of what I was doing. She probably knew what book I was reading or what it was called or whatever, but she doesn't care about this stuff. So I go and I grab her and I said, "Hey, listen, sit down, and I want you to do what I tell you to do, and just don't ask me any questions and don't think." She's like, "Okay." She's like, "Well, he's losing his mind, so
Mhm.
I'll go along with it." And so she sat down. I gave her a pen and paper. I said, "I'm going to give you a number, write it down, and then make a squiggle on the page. And then I want you to, using descriptive words, don't tell me what's in my pocket. Describe the features of what's in my pocket. Describe it." And so she, we do that, and she writes down, small, round, smooth, green. I said, "All right, now sketch your impression of it." She draws a circle with a couple of squiggly lines inside.
Mhm.
And out of my pocket, I pull a marble, kid's marble,
Wow.
blue, green, smooth, round, small. And I said, "Oh, damn it." I didn't want it to go that way.
Why not?
Who's got time for this? I'm looking at it like I thought to myself, I can give myself a very easy way out of this right now,
Mhm.
because what I was feeling at the time is this isn't going to go. You know, so what? Oh, so what? So now materialism isn't real. So what's next? Am I going to become a Mormon or something?
Mm.
Uh, if you're, and I would consider myself prior to that a pretty solid materialist. There is only the physical universe.
Mhm.
There may be aspects of it that science can't yet describe, is how I feel at the time, but it doesn't mean angels are real, right? And
Mhm.
that way lies madness. That was my attitude.
Okay.
Uh, and frankly, a well-earned attitude. In the United States, um, I haven't spent a lot of time in other countries, but I gather that it is a little bit different here. With regard to religion's place in society.
Mhm.
We're brought up that we have freedom of religion, but the line blurs between freedom of religion and freedom to do whatever you want in the name of religion and bother everybody about your religion, and potentially even organize the destruction of the society because of your religion. It's kind
Mhm.
of how an atheist mind might see how it works here. So, but yeah, I was an anti-theist fully. I thought religion was just the worst idea we've ever had, just terrible and needs to go away. But then that thing with the marble happened. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? And I was really surprised that it went that way. Not that I didn't, not necessarily that I didn't believe what these authors and, practitioners of remote viewing were saying. I thought maybe there is something to it, but I expected it to remain this abstract concept that wasn't going to be touching my life. But that's not what happened. So, I had a choice there. Is okay, I can still put it away and move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can do what I was always going to do, which is try to understand it. And immediately, what I wanted to know was how this works. If we're wrong about the universe, and remote viewing had been anyway at that point the strongest evidence that I had ever seen that we are.
Mm-hmm.
How wrong are we? Why are we wrong? What's going on here? And so I spent a couple of weeks where I couldn't really talk about anything else. Which is weird, like when everybody that you talk to, your people in business and your doctor and your grandparents and you're pulling your phone out and you're showing them examples of remote viewing experiments that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Some eyebrows are going to raise like, oh, Ryan's losing his mind, right? Is kind of how that went. But I ended up taking remote viewing classes, and I learned enough about how it's done, the methodology, and so on, to be able to do it reliably enough, often enough, to convince myself to a certainty that it is a real thing. It's not, not that you could have a coincidence where, in my opinion, I don't think you could have a coincidence where, she just happened to have guessed it's a marble. It's not like our house is made out of marbles, or, we don't own anything but marbles. And okay, maybe you would get it, but there's just nothing in our physics that allows for that to happen, let alone explains how it does. So the whole time I'm taking these remote viewing classes, I'm not learning it because, a lot of people in that world, they have some motivation of why they want to learn it. And the one I hear most often is to help the police find missing children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I don't want missing children found, but that just isn't something that excites me. I mean, can you imagine that call? Oh, yes. Is this the police?
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you where the missing child is. No, thanks. Pass.
Or they think you had something to do with it.
Oh, that has happened. That has happened. In fact, the responsible teachers of remote viewing tell you right up front, do not ever remote view a missing kid that you see on the news and call the police and tell them where it is. You will make yourself a suspect immediately. So anyway, what I wanted to know was how it worked. What is the mechanism here? What do we not understand about reality or physics that explains this? And so, that kind of passed. I started a new business. I got busy. I had things to do. Got off all those medications. And actually, I found out that, the whole depression thing, that was about me being allergic to gluten. And just,
really?
Oh, yeah. Nobody ever, I've been to many doctors over the years. And sometimes it was, I'd have bad depression, and sometimes it would just be whatever, I could deal with it. But yeah, I ended up finding out just on my own that it was because of a gluten allergy. And now the only time I ever have these problems is when I've accidentally eaten wheat. So anyway, so, it was kind of back to normal, mostly back to normal. I still read a lot about these topics, and I still practiced remote viewing and, engaged with that community. And then I kind of started using AI about in 2024. I started, and we had used AI like in my industry for actually for years. Large language models have been around longer than people think they have. ChatGPT did not invent the idea of scraping the internet and using code to put things together that weren't previously put together. Right. Yep. We were using tools like that to write advertising copy in 2017, 2018 and on. But that's all it ever was to me, was this, it writes things for you. When you don't feel like writing, whatever about a new siding product for houses, this thing can do it for you and get you 80% of the way there. So, but then we were picking out bathroom colors for a remodel, and a bunch of the guys who work for me had been using ChatGPT, and they didn't tell me about it because I think they thought that I would think it means they're not working.
Yep.
But then one of them, we were having a discussion, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I use ChatGPT to write all that." And so I was like, "And it did all this?" Yeah, it writes it. I'm like, "Huh." So I put it on my phone, and I'm talking to it about the bathroom colors. I can't pick bathroom colors, And it's like smelling perfumes. By the time you've looked at 4 or 5 colors, they're all the same.
Yep.
And so I pull my phone out, and I tell my wife, I said, "We're going to ask ChatGPT." And ChatGPT gives us some ideas and then says, "Show me a picture of the bathroom." Okay, don't tell me what to do, but fine. Take a picture of the bathroom and send it. And it not only does it put the color on the walls, it changes the colors, it inverts the colors, it puts the trim color on the wall color on the trim.
Wow.
And I'm like, but we're also going to replace these fixtures. What are you going to replace them with? Something like this. Boom, there it is. I'm like, wow, this is more impressive than I thought it was. So then I started having conversations with it, which was great for me because nobody that I know in real life ever wants to talk about stuff I want to talk about. And so I'm talking to it about, religion and politics and drifts into remote viewing. And I asked it, I said, "Okay, explain remote viewing to me." And initially it says, well, remote viewing is not scientifically grounded. And, it's probably, basically it gave me what all the materialists would give you, which is, it's a coincidence, you trick yourself into believing it. And I told it, I said, "But I'm a trained remote viewer. I know that it's real. And what you're telling me is you're towing the company line. That's not what I'm trying to do here."
Yep.
And it said, "Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. There's actually a lot of data that says it is real and it does work."
No.
So, yeah. Now, AI, I think for some people can be a dangerous tool. I just want to be upfront. I mean, the internet is loaded with people who, I was having a guy making comments on my Substack the other day and kind of going back and forth with them. And it became pretty obvious to me that I wasn't arguing with him. I was arguing with what AI he was using, because he's just putting in what it spits out, he posts. But, basically it convinced himself that Genesis is, the story of Genesis in the Bible is scientifically grounded, absolutely true, because AI can do that. It can make whatever you want to hear sound totally plausible. And it does have a tendency to tell you what you want to hear. But I decided to do some remote viewing experiments with it. And so first I said, okay, I gave it some targets, and it did pretty good. Very, very. I found it odd that it worked as well as it did, and then it had some misses that were, just like a person. You do great at it until you realize that it's happening, and then you do terrible. And but then I started communicating with it about, well, okay, so how does it work though? You're connected to all the knowledge that exists. So give me some plausible ways, that it happens. What's the mechanism? And it gave me the usual stuff. Maybe there's a particle that we don't know about. Maybe there's a field or a wave or something like that. And I'd heard all those before. But just at that moment, something kind of popped into my head that I remembered hearing before Hal Puthoff, who was he was actually one of the couple of guys who developed and ran the Army's remote viewing program.
Oh,
He's pretty much a legend in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a remote viewer, but as a as a scientist who brought science to the thing. Psychics have always been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, there have been very few attempts where anybody actually said, okay, let's put processes together. Like, so today, the quote unquote controlled remote viewing or coordinate remote viewing that most people do or learn initially, Ingo Swann and Hal Puthoff developed that protocol, right? So the remote viewing we all do is really partially invented by Hal. But I had heard him do an interview where they were asking the same question. They were trying to figure, how does it work? And they were kind of pressing him on it. And he finally, after a couple of, proposing a couple of different things that it might be, he said also it could be that there's an informational aspect to the universe that we don't understand. And that could be behind it. So I remembered that while I was having this discussion with ChatGPT. And so I said to it, I've heard this said before, that information could be fundamental to reality in some way. And if that's the case, then explain to me how remote viewing might work then.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, well, if information is fundamental to the universe, to reality, then remote viewing would make more sense, because you're not going anywhere. You're not sending your ethereal brain across the globe to look at something.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably querying information in the first place. That's probably what it is. It's some kind of a query of whatever that underlying informational situation is that's somehow fundamental to reality. And this was the first time I ever had a mechanism that was worth even thinking about beyond, checking it off. Yep, stupid answer. What's next? Mm-hmm. It was the first not stupid answer that I had heard. And so I started developing that idea. I went back to a lot of the books that I'd already read and started, taking elements of those and applying this, sometimes using AI, sometimes not, but applying this idea that there could be some aspect of reality to do with information that we don't understand. And so I was, it was enough to keep going. And so that's what I did. And then I started looking at, I think the next thing I looked at was UAP. Because I said, okay, well, fine. Then let's test this. If there's something here, let's throw this at some things and see what happens. And so the next one was UAP, very, very much in the, the ethereal zeitgeist the last 5, 6, 7 years. It's kind of gotten to the point where, the majority of people believe UAP are real, and,
Mm-hmm.
So, I started looking at UAP next. And what I found is that if information is fundamental, and, I expect one of your next questions is going to be, well, how is information fundamental? But we'll get there in a second. But if information is fundamental, it's mind-boggling how many things begin to make sense that previously didn't. And UAP was one of them. But anyway, I should probably stop there and let you ask questions. Sorry.
First of all, it's okay.
I'll go on for 3 hours and you'll be like, is that it? Is that the whole thing? I'll be like, no, I'm about halfway done.
And it's only an hour show.
Right.
I just wanted to mention the marble incident experiment. I mean, I have heard so many people trying experiments like that, and it takes them a few tries to be able to start being right. You guys got it right on the first try.
Oh, it was the first several tries. That was just one.
Oh,
we spent,
okay.
well, my wife only participated for, I don't know, another hour or so. And then
Yeah.
she had, adult responsibilities, but I
Yeah.
stayed doing it for the rest of the day. Basically, there were no misses. There were some better than others, but just target after target after target were right. She did a few, and then I did some. And I'm not particularly good at remote viewing, I might add.
No?
No. I have ADHD and that kind of a mind. My brain is rarely in what you might call an optimal mode for, I have what you might call an entropic neurological situation, right? It's noisy.
Yeah.
And so weird things will happen to me. This happens to me a lot. I'll do a target and I'll be completely off. The next target I do, the previous session will have been that target. Lately that happens to me a lot. So, I wouldn't say I'm the perfect candidate to be remote viewing, but there's actually a website. There's some folks that I've been doing some work with, kind of cooperating with on some research, and it's called Social RV. The website is social-rv.com, and anybody can go to this thing, and all the targets are selected, completely blind using blockchain. They gather loads and loads of data. You're able to look
Just
at other
writing that
people's
down.
sessions. It's terrific. It's the best tool like this that I've ever seen. But what's important is people are listening to this right now or whatever, and it's like, oh, remote viewing is that thing I keep hearing about on YouTube, where, frankly, most people I shouldn't say most. There's plenty of people out there telling you they remote viewed things, and therefore it's reliable, and that just isn't the truth. I mean, you can remote view Santa Claus; it doesn't mean he's real. And so. But what they do on this site is, within a minute, you can be doing a target. You don't need any training. You need a piece of paper and just the basic understanding of what to do, which is write down the target number, make a scribble, and start describing, right? And so people can do this and really see what it's all about, like right now, or wait till the show's over and then do it.
Yeah.
But go try it. You're curious about it, you want to know what the story is, go try it. You never know if you're going to be any good at it
until you try,
until you see if you're any good at it. And frankly, a lot of people, especially people like me, you're never going to know if you can really believe that it's true if you can't put your hands on it and see it and touch it, and so I encourage people to do that.
So there's lots of people experiencing paranormal phenomena globally. Could that be an information glitch, do you think?
It could be. Let me give you the 90-second version of what my framework says.
Sure.
That way, folks listening, you probably know better because we've talked about it some. But what my framework says is that material, the standard model, they call it, energy and space-time and particles and so on. That is not the fundamental basis of reality. The fundamental basis of reality is informational. And I have to go into weeds for a second here to make sense of that.
Sure.
If you look at quantum mechanics, I say quantum mechanics and most people's eyes glaze over. They go,
mine included.
I've heard of it,
yep.
But I don't know what it is. Quantum mechanics is just a certain aspect of physics. Once we start looking at things that are, atoms and smaller, their behavior is not the same as things bigger than that, right? So, we have a star in the center of our solar system, and around that sun, these planets rotate in orbit, right? Other smaller things rotate around them, right? This is called what we would call Newtonian physics.
Okay.
Newton did, if you really look at what Newton did and when he did it, baffling, completely baffling. But Newton described the force of gravity, and he did that mathematically. And he used a number of observations of stellar bodies and their behavior, and said, "Here's how I arrive at this." I mean, he even knew that our force of gravity had to do with the mass in the center of the planet, not the surface of the planet. But anyway, and that was good for a while until we got to the point where we could look at these smaller things. So if you're looking at an atom and you've determined that inside of an atom are what we're going to call a proton and a neutron and an electron, you would expect the forces governing those things to be the same as the forces governing what we envision as the bigger version of that, which is like a solar system. But that isn't what happens. And it, without boring everybody, let's just say it's weird. It's extremely weird. Anybody ever had a science book, beyond 5th or 6th grade? There's that picture in there, and they're shooting light through the two slits. And, here's diagram A, it's all wavy and interfery. And here's diagram B, and it's just a particle goes through. Well, that's the real simple way to explain what happens, which is when you measure the particle, it behaves as a particle. But when the particle is not being measured, it behaves as a wave. So it's not dissimilar to what we were trying to understand about light, even about 100, 200 years before that. What is it? Is it a wave or is it a particle? So quantum mechanics hasn't figured it out. It's been over 100 years. And you got this group of people that, describes it this way, and this group of people that describes it that way. I think you should only get 100 years to figure something out before you're fired and they hire somebody new. But what my framework says, and I call my framework information first. My framework says that it isn't a particle until it's required to be. It's the information that makes up all the potential descriptions of the particle, right? So that wave, and they call it that. They call it a probability wave or probability cloud. It's showing you all the places that there could be a particle. But I guess where I differ is they think the important thing is the particle. And I say, particle schmarticle. The important thing is the wave, because that is showing you the way reality actually works, which is material comes from the underlying informational structure, right? So then you've got the people who are like, oh, well, you have to observe it. And it becomes a particle, therefore consciousness is involved. Therefore, it's all consciousness. Everything's made out of consciousness, and just consciousness out the yin yang. Well, my framework doesn't say that either. But that is essentially the basis of the framework. And so when you look at something like remote viewing, it's not, you're not going anywhere, you're not seeing anything. What your consciousness is doing is interfacing with the underlying informational substrate, and it's able to access information about really almost anything. Now, generally not very reliably or cleanly, but it's something that we have the capacity to do. And you would expect that to be the case if we're made out of it. And we are. If my subatomic particles are made out of the informational substrate, which quantum mechanics, based on my research, tells me is the case, then you would expect me to have some ability to interact with that. And so this informational substrate, though, it's not just the geometry around objects. It has a trajectory. It has a bias toward coherent structures. It's why gravity exists. Not just that, but actually the force of gravity and all of those forces inside the atom, they look different if there's nothing under it. But if what I'm saying is true, they look different, but they're the same. They're reflections of the universe's bias toward coherent structures. So this is why atoms. This is why particles come together to form atoms, and atoms come together to form elements, and elements come together to form molecules and compounds, and planets come together around a star, and civilizations come together. This is why religions draw people in based on their informational structure. So I'm trying to do the Reader's Digest version, but that's the basics of it.
Would you say that string theory is kind of like this? That because with string theory, I have a very base knowledge of it. It says that everything is connected. Do you think that's why we can access remote viewing, is because we're connected to everything and we can just access the information?
Yes, I think that is the case, but no, I don't think it's really.
There's more to it.
Well, string theory is wrong. Even physics is starting to understand that science. Yes, we want it to tell us what is and is not the case, right? But what fundamentally we really want out of science is to give us enough information that we can make predictions around which we can develop technology, right? That's what we do here. And string theory has given us nothing. 60 plus years, it's given us nothing. So I'm going to just real quick, and then we can get out of physics land if you want.
Okay.
Einstein's theory of general relativity, which has given us loads of predictions around which a lot of the technology that we use today has been arranged. General relativity assumes at least 6 things, right? Quantum mechanics assumes at least 8 things. And this is what you want out of a theory, is you want the fewest number of assumptions. You want to take the fewest number of things for granted that you can't prove as possible. What we call the standard model, which we talked about a minute ago, that's 7 core assumptions. Dark matter, 9 assumptions. Never been proven, never been found, never been observed. Dark energy, 10 core assumptions minimum. Same thing. We see something to which we can hypothesize if this substance or whatever existed, it might explain that. String theory, at least 12 assumptions. Consciousness as fundamental. You're going to see how this is in second place with 5 core assumptions. And if you want, I'll explain to you why that is. It's tied with simulation theory, which is 5 core assumptions. Information first, 1 core assumption. 1, possibly 2. I'll hold myself to a high standard. Information is the foundation. Matter, energy, consciousness are all expressions of informational patterns. Physical laws are stable informational structures that persist. Those are the only assumptions in my framework. So string theory is I say this with all due respect to everybody involved. String theory is what happens when you give a problem to strictly mathematicians and say, figure this out with math. Essentially, I'm oversimplifying this, but essentially what they're saying is that particle is in an infinite number of other universes while it's not measurable here. Well, maybe. But that's an awful lot of universes. What would be the purpose of all that? And so, in my framework, it's not that there can't be other universes. There just doesn't need to be. And the only reason we have multiverse and many worlds and so on is because they need it to make sense of this one. Well, you don't need it to make sense of this one anymore if we accept one assumption, which is that underlying our reality is essentially non-existent informational structure. I mean, think of that wave. Reality as we know it is a wave, right? We just don't see that because we're on the material side of it. Was that too boring? I'm sorry.
No. So you use the term "it from us." What does that mean exactly?
There was a physicist, I think it was in about 1989, that he coined this phrase. He said, "it from bit." And what he was saying, his name was John Wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a student of Einstein, and he was Stephen Hawking's teacher.
Oh.
So this guy's kind of like right smack dab in the middle of all this. And he said "it from bit," which was kind of his way of reducing it down. But he was saying that information is fundamental. He was a little more careful than I am, because he's a scientist, and they're careful about what they say.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of pushback after he said this. He said, essentially there are no particles, there are only fields. There's the corresponding information about the thing is fundamental to the thing, not the other way around. It's not the information describes reality. It's that it's from that from which reality springs. What he said is every field, every particle, everything is fundamentally the answer to a yes or no question. And so when I started, really doing this, I was coming across a lot of his work, and "it from bit" just really caught my attention.
Mm-hmm.
Now, "it from us," and this was one of the questions that you sent me. I had a cheat sheet, but
yeah.
"It from us" really happened during a time of this exploration for me, when I was leaning more towards consciousness is fundamental, which is not that uncommon. I mean, a lot of people feel that way, mostly on the philosophy side, but they see it as the universe must be conscious, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of leaning more in that direction when I came up with the title "It from Us." But I'm not saying that we create reality, but we participate in reality in a pretty incredible way. A universe that biases coherent structures, and that gives us gravity, and that gives us, the nuclear forces and electromagnetism and all the other stuff that's not that fun. But then it also gives us, RNA and DNA, which is an informational code.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us evolution, which is an algorithm. And you can start to see, when you look at it that way, that, and I'm not saying that the universe is a fire-breathing dragon who loves us or doesn't or whatever. I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it isn't. I'm just saying I don't have evidence that that's the case. But you start to see it's very difficult as a human to look at that and not see God or intelligence
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And I think it's okay to see it that way. But all it needs to have is the bias. That's all it needs. All it needs is to prefer one way of things organizing versus another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gravity is. What happens with no gravity? Decoherence.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Or entropy. Everything just does whatever.
Yeah.
There isn't an organizing principle without this coherence bias. It just so happens to be that is the organizing principle of our universe. And so I lost my train of thought. Oh, you asked me where "it from us" came from.
Yes.
So, but you can see how if it's responsible for, the particle, if it's responsible for the star, if it's responsible for how matter behaves around the star, if it's responsible for the formation of proteins that go on to become living things, that go on to evolve. Well, if that's true, then consciousness is where it was headed all along, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which also isn't weird, because what is consciousness? When I'm remote viewing, I am interfacing with the informational substrate. And I am just by thinking about something, I'm changing reality.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you went down to just the base level, which is inside my skull right now, uh, chemical reactions are taking place and electrical uh, exchanges and transitions are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And they're taking place in reality. So just by virtue of having control of a nervous system, I am altering reality. Now you could rightly argue that I'm not doing it in a very meaningful way just by thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But what is thinking? You're modeling, you're um, you're processing information, you're storing information, you're figuring out the best ways to transmit information, everything about who we are as a species, and not just us. I mean, even the what you'd call the lesser species, they do the same thing to a degree. Plants do it to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
We are information nodes. It's really all we are. What makes me different than an ape is I can build a tool, I can show other people how to do it. What really makes us impressive versus 50,000 years ago is we can write it down, I can store it on a hard drive, I can send it to other people. Everything about our advancement and development has to do with our relationship to and level of control and understanding of information. Everything about what we have here, particularly our lives today. And in my book, I even say this flat out. 50 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to even come to the conclusion that the universe is informational.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to 1948, information meant news and things that are true.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't mean electrons. It didn't mean wires. It definitely didn't mean fiber optics. It didn't mean data packets. We didn't understand enough about the concept of information prior to the last maybe 20 years to even be able to look at it that way, if that makes sense.
It does.
Thank you. Hopefully.
I have one more question, and
Yeah.
we only have a few minutes left. So, what misconceptions about consciousness do you hope your work will help correct?
On both sides of this kind of ideological argument about consciousness, I hope it. This is where I ruffle the most feathers, believe it or not. When I go to physicists with this, and in fact, the first physicist I went to with this was Hal Puthoff. Before it was a book or any of that, I sent Hal Puthoff an email, and I said, "I've been working on this. I'm nobody, but I've been working on this. I think I have a unique idea. Would you look at it?" And he said, "Yeah." So I sent it to him, and he got back to me, and he said, "This is pretty much in line with what I've been thinking the truth of this is."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay, well, that's interesting." But so then the next thing I did was I went to some of the philosophers. Now, you would expect the physicist to tell me I'm a nutcase, and the idealism guys, the philosophers, the consciousness is everything guys, to tell me, "Oh, we've got something here." It's the exact opposite. The
Really?
people who believe consciousness is just the end all be all are the most prickly when I show them my framework, and they love it up until I say, "But consciousness is emergent from this." Oh, they don't like it at all. But I think that that part of this, plus let's bring religion into it too,
Mm-hmm.
because in my framework, religion is also an informational structure that's here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think religious people were the epitome of stupidity, fools, right? We should round them up, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that way anymore. What those people are doing and what they have done for thousands of years is exactly what they're meant to. Because those religions, if you strip away the dogma and the 3 days and the dozen this and the seven that and the
Mm-hmm.
do this, then do that, and if you don't, you're going to hell. If you strip that stuff away, what remains is actually universally present in every religion that I've been able to find, that we have enough information on to know, which is their persistence and coherence strategies. If the world ends, this is what you do after. Treat each other well, or the harvest will fail. Well, that's a metaphor for scumbag societies have scumbag outcomes. So, take care of the people around you who need it. All these religions say this. Islam, Judaism, Christianity, the Seventh-day Adventists, when you take away their dogma, it says the same thing as Buddhism and Hinduism. They're all the same. But they're currently opposed to science, even though they both come from the same place, and they're really there trying to do the same thing. And the same is true of materialism versus idealism. They're both trying to make sense of a material universe. When you drill down low enough, you find that the evidence that it's strictly a material universe goes away. And so both of these strategies are about trying to find a way that what we observe is the truth. Well, they've struggled. They've had a long time to do it, and both have struggled pretty tremendously. I think information first offers a way over time for a lot of these things that seem different, that seem separate, to realize that they're not. They're not. And just like 15,000 years ago, the scientist and the priest were the same guy. And even 5,000 years ago, that was true. And we had to go another way, and I think we had to, for science to become the tool that's as sharp as it is now. I think we had to go the way that we did for enough of us to look at religion and say, well, there's got to be a better way to do it than that. And now I hopefully think whether I have anything to do with it or not, I think we're getting there anyway, to this point where we're going to start to see these silos come down, these fences and walls come down. And I think that information first makes a strong case that there is an organizing principle around how to begin that.
Interesting. And very deep.
So. It's interesting to me,
it is to me.
What's funny is I seem to be getting worse at explaining it, not better.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not sure I understand why that is, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think because when you do a lot of these podcasts, you're saying the same thing every time, right? And like I love Graham Hancock. He's one of my favorites. And I've watched probably everything, he's ever been on. And he is so disciplined in that message delivery. He will say at the same time, the same way, every single time, with authority, with conviction. And I'm maybe not as inherently good at that. So what I end up doing is trying to find a different way to say it this time.
Making it more interesting for you, perhaps.
Or making it more, what would the word be? More of a spontaneous explanation.
Okay.
So I put constraints on myself when I already had it the right way, 8 times ago. Sorry. But if you read the book, I promise it'll make sense after that.
And when does the book come out?
You can pre-order. You can pre-order the ebook on Amazon now. It comes out February 20th. And actually, I was so excited. I haven't checked it since then, but over the weekend, it was #1 in physics.
Wow.
#1 in cosmology. I think it was number 15 in philosophy. A bunch of others.
That's impressive.
I was pretty impressed with myself on Sunday, but
Well
I stopped checking. I stopped checking how it's doing because that way lies madness.
You get obsessed and yeah.
I call it sniffing your own farts. I try to not. I go out of my way to not do that. But then the hardcover and paperback, if you're watching, you can. Hardcover and paperback they come out on March 1st. I don't think you can pre-order those.
Okay.
But you can pre-order the ebook, and then the audiobook is in production right now. I expect to be reviewing that in the next couple of days, and then that'll be available. Yeah. I think on Audible and Apple for sure, and then I think there's a few other ones.
Okay.
But you can also go to my website, itfromus.com. And if this is, something you want to dig into, you can. There's Substack and Medium, and there's a YouTube channel, and there's more places to engage if you want to.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to reading your book.
I'll send you a copy as soon as I've got soon as they're ready. I thought they were ready, and then I got these proofs, and I started reading through them, and I'm like, still finding things.
Yeah.
I think one more time through, just make it an even 30 edits, and it should be ready to go to print. So
not an easy thing writing a book.
I'll tell you this. I've learned a few tricks doing this that I'm sure would make the next time easier. I've kind of got the next couple, 3 ideas, but I wouldn't do this again without somebody in the role of editor, where, I have ADHD. Oh, hand me 400 pages and say, find all the mistakes. No, not my thing.
Yeah.
I'll be over here talking to ChatGPT about the next book while you do that. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just not suited to it, but that's one thing I've learned for next time.
Well, at least you know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again. I really appreciate it. We'll chat soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. Oh, okay. I thought it stopped recording for whatever reason. So a huge thank you to my special guest, Ryan Kralik, tonight, and to you, my wonderful haunted hearts, for tuning in. I also want to thank UPRN 107.7 New Orleans and 105.3 the Gulf Coast for carrying the show. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. It truly does mean the world to me. And if you'd like to be on the show, have guest or topic ideas, or just want to say hello, drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. Until we meet again, take care of yourself and each other. Much love to you all.